Morning, welcome to the town of Oldham. It's very wet in Oldham. I don't know if it's wet all year round, but it's certainly wet today, very cold. This is Ashton from the channel Exploring the Past and the Present. We're here today to have a very wet, soggy walk up the Oldham branch of the Delph Donkey line. So from here in Oldham, we're at the site of the Glodwick Street station. I suppose we'll get into this. I'm going to tell you all about this from the comfort of my nice dry office. But I'll leave a link in the description to Ashton's channel. Go and have a look at his stuff. He's doing a great series at the moment on the Oldham railway. He's following it all the way. Well worth a watch. So the Delph Donkey, the intriguing thing about this railway to me was the name. I assumed before reading up on it that it was due to a beloved steam engine that was nicknamed the Donkey or something along those lines, but it appears that the myth and legend suggests that early trains were hauled by donkey, which I find hard to believe personally. 1849 is when the first section of this line opened, which seems a little late for horse or mule drawn trains, especially as it wasn't an isolated branch line with connections shared with other lines. But anyway, the Delph Donkey would run from Delph at the east end of the line down through Greenfield after it merged with the Huddersfield to Stalybridge line. It then left that line again at Greenfield Junction to head towards the town of Oldham. So very much a line of two different sections, or even three you could say. I understand that in terms of services, the Oldham to Greenfield part of the line was used substantially more than the Delph end. And we're starting here in this episode, and we'll take you to here at Grotton. And this Oldham portion of the branch opened in 1856, I believe, and it closed in 1955, apart from a few diversionary trains and goods for a number of years after. The track was lifted in 1964. And here's an interesting fact: Oldham no longer has what we would call a heavy rail connection. It's just a tram these days. So we've got a future episode of our Lost Railway Towns series here. So Glodwick Street Station, this was one of a number of stations in Oldham. And this station opened in 1862, and before that our branch line actually terminated at Oldham Mumps. The station was also served by the Oldham, Ashton and Guide Bridge Railway. With the conditions and some of the issues with the footage and sound, I did consider not putting this video out, but I was swayed by the effort it took to travel over there on the day, with an M1 closure causing chaos, and Woodhead being, well, like Woodhead, and a blizzard on the moors. With meeting Ashton, I also wanted to show something from the collaboration. Look here, I actually saw this on Google Maps, and I thought to myself, wow, is that a little bit of platform? But nothing remains. You come here yourself, you see a lot of this line's been re-landscaped, but this caught my eye. This it's just a wing wall, you know, a retaining wall or whatever. Look, but it does look a little bit platform-esque there, but it's really not. I'm wondering if that's an abutment from a bridge though. Look how it's, yeah, look at the profile coming out of that. But the railway line, looking back here towards Greenfield, look, it's kind of clinging to this side here and crossing the road just behind where Ashton stood there. Should probably just point out at this moment that what we're standing on here is just one huge story of infilling. So we're stood at road level now. We're stood on what would have been the Glodwick Street bridge here, looking down over the platforms. Barely resembles where you'd even guess is a railway station here these days. And then straight down here, look, is the course of the railway line, and you've got to imagine here, from what I can make out from photographs and maps, is we had two sheer walls. We had two retaining walls either side here, and there'd be a cut-in. So we're walking right on top of the infill again, and again, I see that's going to be a story of a lot of this line that we're going to see today. But there are some bits and bobs you can pick out, you know, like bridges, walls, etc. Some little points of interest. We'll try and I'll show you the maps, etc. as we go along. Look, this is a bit on the right hand side of the cut-in here. Look, and look at these. Look at this line. I suppose line of coping stones. Now I'm guessing that this is the top of the retaining wall on the right hand side. Got some indentations there. Now, what year did we say? You say 1920s or something?
1922.
It was all covered over this?
It was, and then got opened up like July 1922. what I've read, yeah.
It's difficult to get your head around what was here.
It is, yeah.
Isn't it?
Like I say, it would have been, like I say, a lot lower down. And yeah, you'd have been literally looking at the two bridges on either side, looking down towards Bluefield.
I've never been to Oldham before, Ashton. It's my first time in Oldham. When I think of Oldham, you know, I think of Joe Royal, Graham Sharp,
yeah,
John Sheridan. I just think of the early 90s football
players, yeah.
team. Well, not John Sheridan, he came later, but
yeah, he did. Yeah.
They got to the FA Cup run they had,
yeah,
early 90s. Yeah, look, and these bridges are going to be coming at us thick and fast, look. So, obviously, again, I keep mentioning that word infilled cutting, but the top of the wall, isn't it? There, look at that.
Yeah.
Half of coping stone on the pier there. It's the other half's just gone, been sheared off. So trackbed deep underneath us here, but the top of the bridge still exists, and look, you can see there's a retaining wall at the other side as well as one of the bridge piers. Bridge in, I never noticed that. More bridge remains there. You can tell this is obviously landfill, like household waste or whatever. Look, there's loads of these vents you see coming out of the floor, so they're obviously, and we've said as we're going down this line, haven't we? We've walked down it to where we started today, and
yeah,
nothing's been built on.
No.
They're obviously the contaminated land.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, all the some of the trackbed actually doesn't even look obvious, you know. It's taken a lot of working out to see, you know, like if this was an embankment, like the embankments further down, or if there were cuttings. I mean, we're coming up to a section now where we're trying to work out if there was a little tunnel under the road.
Yeah, long bridge, isn't it?
Yeah, we were thinking long bridge because nothing states on the maps that you were a tunnel.
I've certainly walked through shorter tunnels than this skew bridge that we're about to see in front, but yeah, this is nothing representative to the trackbed. We're just walking on top of the infill that's just the same height at the top of the bridges.
Yeah, and look back that way, you can just see probably the top of the bridge over there, and obviously that part of the track's been filled in with some steps going up it, but they've certainly done a lot of reclamation work.
So here we go. I don't know if this is actually true, this wall in front of here, it's true to this end of this bridge, look, but you can see the other side of the road. You can see just over there, the other side of the crossroads is the other side of the bridge. So yeah, long bridge, but it just doesn't, the alignment of the trackbed coming, and it is on a curve on the map, but there's just something not lining up on this for me at the moment. I think it needs a bit more investigation when I get home. Here's another top of a bridge, look. So again, more infilling. This is just the top. You can see there, look at that. You can see the top of the pier, look, just on the left hand side.
The rain now is absolutely, really heavy, so here. It's not going anywhere.
This is the first bit where we've actually walked on, I suppose, what is the true sense, the true level of the railway, the trackbed here, just after that last bridge. So the path's dropped quite significantly down to here, and we are in a little embankment. Yeah, around here, look, Ashton, look, so we've come down off the embankment. The path's come down, but I think some of the embankment's been cut away here, look, but look, still got the bottom few layers of the bricks from the abutment, so I wonder if this was an arch bridge.
Yeah, I think it was.
But the bridge is completely missing now. It's maybe been taken down because it was a bit of a low bridge, a restriction. Nothing at that side though. I mean, they've even gone to the length of getting rid of the embankment on that side. Look how high the embankment is here. Look, it's down there, look, there's like a waterfall, a cascade going down, meeting that culvert, isn't there, down there? Some drainage. A long way down there though. So look, this is just on the entrance to Lee Station, which is coming up in not too distant future, but this is how we know we're on the right level of the trackbed, look. The trackbed's gone higher a little bit now, so we've got a little bit of infill in here. That bridge is probably about a metre or two, maybe 3 above where it should really be, but just the other side of that bridge is all that Lee Station. There's quite a lot to get stuck into. Yeah, it's a very good looking bridge, that, isn't it? It reminds me, it's the same design as the bridges being seen on the Dearne and Dove Canal. Same arch, same. It's really shallow, look. So there is some infill under there. See, back in the day they were looking for stuff, Ashton. They were looking for places, what, 70s, 80s,
yeah,
to put landfill, you know, household waste in. And stuff like cuttings, railway cuttings.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what we've got here.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of it down the line, especially further that way.
But all this as well, look. So let's just talk about Lee Station. Platforms either side, footbridge, and the access to the station building was just a ramp just on that side of the line here. And it's quite a setup here, isn't it? I mean, the size of the goods shed, engine shed just over to the left here, goods shed in the middle. It will go past the site of. So yeah, you can see this on the maps, Ashton. This is a rampway down to the station building. Still got the cobbles down. Remains of the railing there, top of the bridge. Wow, I couldn't believe the scale of the goods shed when I saw this photo. It looks more like a warehouse. And the engine shed and turntable are visible here, and we get a good look at the station with its buildings and footbridge where we've just been stood. So I think the goods shed's somewhere around about here, Ashton.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Coming to the end of this section now, but look at the retaining wall just on the right hand side here. Now you can't see it for the trees here, but the path will take your eye line off to the left hand side. But this went through a bridge, and again, same old story. The bridge is infilled, but we can go up there and we can have a look, so we can see some remains of the bridge from the road level. But I just love these. I love these walls on the right hand side, these huge retaining walls here. Typical stone of the area as well, isn't it? But look at this for a view, look, and you can just see this bridge is really skewed. Look, you see the wooden slatting, you can see the pillars either side there. That bit at the top of the bridge, so I wonder if it was a girder or something up the top. But such an angle that the railway cutting goes through here, through all this infilling. Look, Station Street. Yeah, so here's the view. We're not on the bridge at the minute, but we're looking down the cutting. There's the bridge. Bit of a different story at that side though. Again, we came up to that bridge, we came up to road level. We've not dropped down, so we've got another cut in here that's been filled in, landfill. But look, this road that we're coming up to here with this zebra crossing, this isn't on the old map. So this road's been put in since the railway closed, and this has been levelled. Look, and we've got the top of the retaining wall on the left hand side, and that goes all the way over to the other side of this road. Now how deep this cutting was, I'm not entirely sure, but you can definitely make out the corridor, can't you, the railway. So last station of the day, we're going to show you
Grotton and Springhead.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's called Grotton and Springhead Station.
But to be honest, despite me having 2 coats on, I suppose 3 hats, so cold.
It's freezing.
My gloves, I had to abandon the gloves about an hour and a half ago, and
you throw them away?
No, they're in my pocket.
Oh.
They're so wet they just became as a.
Yeah, it's got really damp. This is probably the most dampest Explore.
I said I wasn't going to do any more rain recording, so I've not invested in more gear, and
no.
Oh, never mind.
I know. Just take the risk, grin and bear it, get home and get comfortable.
I am looking forward to it. Thankful for the heated seats and the heated steering wheel.
Absolutely, same.
I think somewhere around Woodhead Pass I might get feeling in my fingers again.
I've got quite a heated steering wheel. Have you got that luxury in your car?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Lovely. So the station was just the other side of this road. This road, if we look on the old maps, didn't cross the railway. It finished here. That was as far as it went. There was access the other side to the station house. So this is a little bit of a misrepresentation at the moment with this road crossing here, but we've got some station remains at the other side. Station house is still there, and there's a platform to have a look at too. So it's nice to see information boards at site of old stations that don't exist. It's a little bit of information about the line and the station. It's the only one, I believe, on this Oldham branch where we can actually see remains of the station. Look, this is the end of the platform ramp. I hope you can see this because it is so dark and we are under trees. You'd think it was literally getting dark, but it's the middle of the day. Look, there's a platform losing the battle with the shrubbery and the thorn. What are these? Brambles. Evil things. Well, they are evil if you're looking for railway things like this. You more likely catch a boat down here these days than a train. But look, yeah, look at the platform all the way down here. Nice that. We'd like to see a little bit of platform remain. Quite a length, isn't it? Yeah. That is a nice length, Ashton. That.
Yeah. It just goes probably just beyond them trees, but we don't want to go up there in this weather. I mean, I've been up into that cutting when it's been less wet than this, and it was bad then, so I don't think we want to risk going up there. But yeah, went quite some distance. All the rest of it's all gone. I mean, you're not going to see much more now.
So where does this line and the Delph Donkey story go from here? After passing through the station here, the line entered the 1,332 yard long Lidgate Tunnel. It then briefly joined the main line at Greenfield before leaving again a short time later at Delph Junction. It was then a short run up through Dobcross to the small destination village of Delph. But that's for another day, when it's drier and warmer, hopefully. The weather, the cold, the rain, I've been penetrated, and I'm going to close out while I've got it rolling. So thanks ever so much, Ashton. Shame it wasn't on better
weather. Yeah. It's been a good day though.
Had a picnic and all sorts.
Yeah, could have done. Yeah.
I mean, saurine in my bag. I'm not getting out.
No, we don't want to. There's no cafes nearby as well. So I've enjoyed it today. It's been really good. It's good to meet you as well. You know, it's actually nice to see you in the flesh. Like watching your videos. So yeah, do some more explores in the future.
Yeah. Ta-ra.
Take care, guys. See you next time.